Hello out there, Brian Oxley from the Hideaway Farm. We're at David Pruitt's garage. What I'm really excited about is that he has been kind enough to make these bikes available to the Hideaway Farm. My goodness, you look at these bikes, you cannot believe how creative our forefathers were. And I really believe that's important because guess who's the greatest creator the universe has ever known? Jesus Christ. He was good at making stuff like stars and all these things, and he made us with that same desire to make cool stuff.
This is a 1938 Mead Ranger Autocycle Deluxe, which was actually manufactured by the Schwinn Bicycle Company. It's a Schwinn Autocycle Deluxe with the Mead Ranger name badge on it. It comes from the factory. This is the girls edition. It comes from the factory with lots of little extra doodads, such as this Greyhound on the front fender. Little twin headlights here that was controlled by this light switch. And you would take this tank apart and your batteries would go inside there. The girls featured a 2-speed rear hub to give her a mechanical advantage for pedaling uphill. The bike also has what they call a Schwinn floating saddle, which has like a motorcycle spring on the saddle here, and this tube down through here is spring loaded, and it did not have little coil springs underneath the seat in the back. It had this spring and this flat spring, which give it what they call the floating saddle. And on the handlebars up here, we have a big aluminum crossbar that incorporates a speedometer in the center here, a Clipper speedometer, which back in those days, Clipper ships and Yankee Clipper airplanes were noted for their fast delivery and speed. And you would have a horn button here that you press on this button and the little horn in here would beep. And then if you were riding at night, you could press this button over here and your speedometer would light up so you could actually see how fast you were going. This was a deluxe bike in 1938. Very few little girls ever had a bike like that. This is the boys' Mead Ranger. That's the mate to the girls. It also has your Greyhound on the front fender, your little twin Delta headlights, the crossbar speedometer, the floating saddle, just like the other one. Plus this one has a little trap door here on the side that you could open up. You could keep your a little rag in there and a monkey wrench and a pair of pliers and a screwdriver, and if you were going down the road and had a flat tire, you could stop and get your patch kit out and just fix your tire right there and then go on about your business. This is a 1936 Schwinn Aero Cycle. This bike represented a major change in bicycle manufacturing in the early 20th century. Before Schwinn come out with an Aero Cycle, they made these bikes 3 years, 34, 5, and 6. This is a 36 model. In 1934, prior to that, all bicycles have what they call single tube tires, which were quite a bit harder to repair and patch, and plus they were temperamental about coming off the rims. This invention here is called a balloon tire. It's two-piece. You have a tire with a removable inner tube inside. And when Schwinn first talked about bringing these out at the International Bicycle Convention the year before, 1934, everybody in the industry said, oh, that'll never work. People won't buy that. Well, this was the biggest sensation, the biggest hit in 20 years in bicycle manufacturing, the invent of a balloon tire with a separate inner tube. This was the Art Deco design of the 30s with this single headlight in the front. You got this big tank on here that looked like a blimp. Here again, you had a trap door. You could put your wrench in there and your patch kit. Oh, you might, if you're going on a long ride, you might even take your little sandwich with you. But you could put your needs in that tank and ride down the road. You have heavy duty crossbar handlebars, and it had this big loud Delta horn on the front right here. You had the nice wide comfortable spring saddle. This one features a nickel plated metal welting around the edge of it there so it wouldn't get bumped, torn, and tattered. A rear stand as opposed to the side mounted kickstand. Most all bikes, this is the carryover from older bikes, this rear mounted stand back here that they clipped up to this clip when you was riding it. And when you wanted to park it, you unclipped it and run it back like that. That gives it more of a motorcycle look, so the big boys can feel like, little boys can feel like the big boys. And it had red rubber grips and red rubber pedal blocks. This was the pride and joy of the Schwinn Bicycle Company when it was first introduced in 1934. And I stand corrected, this is a EA horn rather than Delta.
And here they are, the two men in my life who have come together to create this wonderful museum for young people to come and see how amazing the work is of our forefathers. You know, this whole thing about I'm back to cancel culture is ridiculous. They made the coolest bicycles, our forefathers, our parents, our grandparents, and we want you all to see them. And these are the two men that got me into this for your benefit out there.
Okay, 1941 Schwinn Boys Deluxe bike, but
That's old age.
this one is titled badge. It has a badge on it. It says Excelsior, which was there again a private label for Schwinn bicycles. Has what they call the deluxe horn tank. Features a battery-powered horn in there. You have your button over here on this side. You push that, and it would beep and light up. Has a heavy-duty crossbar handlebars and metal struts on the front fork. There again to make it heavy-duty and resemble a motorcycle. You have your teardrop fender light, which is incorporated into the fender. That don't just sit on there. The top does, but the light tray itself is actually incorporated into the manufacture of the fender. Out here on the tip, we have an old-timey water transfer decal that actually says Vol-T Vengeance. And here's the plane, an airplane there, which was a trainer for pilots during World War II. Now remember, this bike was manufactured in '41. So the lucky young lad that owned this bike, either his parents or his uncle or somebody, had a direct connection with Vol-T aircraft manufacturing, which is right here in Nashville. Was for many, many years. Then they started calling it Avico, and today I think it's Triumph. They still make aero structures and airplane wings. But I'd say this young man knew somebody that was directly connected with this during World War II, and the remnants of this decal, you can still make out enough to see a airplane. It's a trainer for a bomber airplane that was manufactured during the World War II, and it was made by Vol-T Aircraft Manufacturing, and it was dubbed the Vol-T Vengeance. And there's the decal that he put on there while he rode that bike during World War II. This bike has the deluxe chain guard on it, extra length chain guard, heavy duty rear carrier on the back, and full fenders, and a nice Schwinn reflector on the rear fender. This bike also features a locking fork, and this one still has the key, original key in it with a little leather key case there. You can turn your handlebars sideways and lock this fork and pull the key out, so couldn't nobody just jump on your bike and ride off. The lady I got this bike from, now I got several bikes from original owners, and this lady was the original owner of this bike. She told me her daughters didn't want it. They told her it was at the house, they were going to put it in a yard sale when she was gone. And she said, I want somebody to have my bike that will appreciate it. And she says, I think you'll take care of it. And I have. And now I'm passing it on to Mr. and Miss Oxley to put in the museum. And we'll be careful. This is a 1938 Roadmaster Supreme. And it was a deluxe bike in its day. It wasn't the entry-level bike. It features deluxe two-tone paint job, the little Delta twin headlights. It has your horn tank here in the middle too, with the horn button right there, and you'd have to put batteries in, of course, to beat the horn. And the Art Deco look with all the flowing bars here, but this seat post here, it curves also. On 98% of all other bikes, they were straight up and down. This one curves to match the curves in the frame, and the pedal cranks match the curve also. They're not straight, they're curved. You have a arc in them to match this. Has a deluxe chain guard coming way past the rear sprocket bolts here. This netting is the original netting that was around the rear wheel, because before World War II, young ladies didn't wear pants. It wasn't ladylike. They had to wear skirts or dresses. And if a girl was riding the riding a bike with her dress on, they didn't want it to get hung in the spokes in the rear wheel. If it flowed back, the wind flowed it back, the rear wheel would catch it and the spokes would tangle it up in there. This net around the rear wheel was made there to prevent that from happening. And it has the deluxe big rear reflector on it and a tail light, deluxe tail light. She even had a blue dot in her red tail light. That's cool, but that goes with the color of the bike. Now this is a post-war bike. This is a 48, 9, or maybe possibly a 50. Girls Deluxe B6. I think the actual stock number on the catalog is B106, but everybody refers to them as the B6. It had Schwinn script handlebar grips on it. You got a oval logo here with the script Schwinn spelled out in it. It has the Springer fork, which smoothed out the bumps in the road. There again, you had the built-in teardrop fender light in the front, give you a little light while you're riding at nighttime. Deluxe chain guard. It comes back past the rear axle. Nice leather girl's seat, leather saddle there for comfort of the ride. This is the boys' Deluxe B6, and there again, following along the lines of motorcycles, so little boys could feel like they were on their way to owning a motorcycle and be cool. You got there again the Deluxe Schwinn script handlebar grips. This bike features a front wheel brake, just like a motorcycle would have. It's got a drum brake, and here's your handle here to actuate it. And of course you have the Springer fork on here to take the shock out of the road. Fender light, teardrop fender light that's built into the front fender. Schwinn horn tank here with your horn button. Nice leather saddle there. The boys' saddle was a little bit longer this way than girls' saddles was. And it's got the deluxe chain guard. And just like the girls' bike, it features the deluxe big block rubber pedals here. I didn't mention that earlier on the other bike, but the rubber blocks are a lot larger than on the pedals that bikes you may find at Western Auto or Sears. And a deluxe luggage carrier for carrying your school books or your baseball bat and your ball glove or wherever you might be traveling. And that is the B6 106.
We're gonna bring out the little bike, but this is my favorite bike of everything he's got. It's the bike that really moved me, and you can tell the story.
One of my grandmother's, well, my daddy's first cousin, his father, and a gentleman they called Pink Fitzhugh. The three of them, John Pruitt, Merlin Grice's father, and Pink Fitzhugh worked at the sawmill making cross ties for the railroad company.
Oh.
And this was in the early 20th century, and they didn't have power tools. They had broad axe. And going to work one morning, they decided to make a friendly wager to see who could hew the most cross ties in a day's time. Now, Merlin Grice told me that my grandfather won that by hewing 40 cross ties. And I said, Merlin, I said, how many hours was in that day? I said, 40 cross ties sounds like an awful lot of hard work. And he said that his dad showed him when he was a young man how to do it one day. He demonstrated it for him out in the backyard. He said, it's all in knowing what you're doing and being accurate with the broad axe. He said, if you know how to get it started, hew one side off, and then which way to turn it and how to hew it and everything. He said, you know, hewing out half a dozen of them, not a big deal. But 40 of them was definitely a day's work.
Yeah. Okay, could you tell us the beautiful, moving story of this little tricycle?
Okay, this is a toddler's tricycle. It's a small one. It's a entry level, a beginner, or for toddler. And you got to remember that this is right in the middle of the Great Depression. And Depression dollars were a whole lot different than post-war dollars. If you could ever find the Sears catalog or Montgomery Ward catalog or ads for merchandise for sale back in the mid-30s, things were so, what we think now, we think they was cheap. But it wasn't cheap back then because you couldn't hardly get your hands on any money. Now you can get all the money you want, but it don't buy nothing. And here is a copy out of an actual Wheel Goods supply catalog. This comes from Chicago Cycle Supply, which was a big Wheel Goods distributor for many, many years. Sold tricycles, bicycles, wagons, and all kinds of wheel goods and toys and sporting goods. This is a copy out of their page, out of their catalog. This is that tricycle. And it's a number 512 buddy bike.
512 buddy bike.
That is the stock number.
Okay.
This company sold them to retail outlets such as bicycle shops or little mom and pop 5 and 10 cent stores down on the town square, out in country towns all across the country. And their description, written description of it, that this is a velocipede for the very young child that can be sold at a price within the reach of the poorest people. The streamlined designed frame, seat, forks, and disc wheels are pressed steel. Has a 1 1/4 inch front, 8 1/4 inch front wheel, and a 5 1/4 inch rear wheels with 1/2 inch rubber tires. The gracefully curved design handlebars are fitted with rubber grips, enameled in bright red. If you called up in your bike shop or your retail store just wanted one to fill the order or have on display, they sold at retail, the wholesale cost was 90 cents.
90 cents.
90 cents for one tricycle. If you ordered them in a carton where they didn't have to rehandle them, you got them for 80 cents each. They were packed 6 to a carton. And if you wanted to order 6 of them, then the price dropped to 80 cents each.
How rare is this particular one with this condition?
That's a pretty rare little tricycle. Most of them got torn up because they were handed down to more than one child. They had to last through a couple of different children.
Right.
And then also you have to keep in mind what the kids did tear up was sold during World War II for scrap iron drives, when they had scrap metal drives, and they were hauling stuff to scrap yards by the railroad cars full. So a lot of metal, a lot of pre-war stuff. That's why pre-war stuff is much harder to find than post-war.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it was destroyed during the war to make war equipment and war machines.
Wow. So this was for the poorest of the poor.
That's what it says right here.
Yeah.
It can be sold at a retail price. It can be sold within the reach of the poorest people. These are original advertisements out of magazines typical to 1899, 1900, turn of the 20th century, for Columbia bicycles again. This is advertising their chainless model bicycle. These bikes did not have sprockets and chains on them like most bikes. They had a drive shaft with a ring and pinion gear. Yeah.
Here,
Hold it up. Yeah, there you go.
see it turning?
And they had a pinion gear and a ring gear in the front and in the rear, and it worked just as smooth as silk. But it was quite expensive to make gears rather than punch out sprockets and roller chains. These bikes were quite expensive. Columbia made them for about 20 years, but then they eventually dropped them because of the price. Excuse me, and went back to making bikes with chains and sprockets on them so they could be more price competitive with the other bike manufacturers. And this is the rear rim that come off of this bike. Sorry, I don't have the hub for it, but this is typical a wooden rim, 28 by 1.5 wood bicycle rim, which was typical of manufacturing in that time period, made out of hickory. They were lightweight and extremely durable. This is the tire that we referred to earlier as a single tube tire. This was before the invention of balloon tires. Your tire and the inner tube is all one piece. It's just a super heavy duty inner tube with tread on it. And you would have to heat these and then glue them onto this wooden rim. And that would hold air. If you had a puncher, they had a little doodad that was very similar to what they repair tubeless tires with today. And you'd have to push it in with a tool from the outside and pat your puncher and keep riding. And there's your valve stem where you put the air. This is new old stock. It's never been ridden on.
Wow.
And this is
This
this was referred to as a chain link tread. See, the tread actually makes up what looks like chain links. This is a 1960 Mustang Thoroughbred. They had about 4 different model Mustang motorcycles. This is the Thoroughbred model, which was the top of the line. And what made it the top of the line is it came with wire wheels and a rear swing arm suspension. This was built by Gladden Products, who manufactured little portable engines during World War II that they used as auxiliary hydraulic pumps in the big airplanes during World War II. After the war, they didn't have a product to sell anymore. And one of their company engineers had made a motorcycle to ride back and forth to work. And so from that developed the Mustang motorcycle, and that's the business they were in. These were in the same category as Cushman motor scooters, but they were always a little bit more powerful, a little bit faster. But they never attained the dealership network that Cushman's had. So these were real big out on the West Coast, Southern California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas. They was real popular out there. They had some popularity here east of the Mississippi, but they just never obtained the distributorship that Cushman had. They didn't have the manufacturing numbers. But these were real popular bikes. They're always a little bit more pricey than a Cushman. This is the Thoroughbred, which is a 12 horse and a 4-speed transmission too. So it was a real small motorcycle. This is a 1948 Harley-Davidson 45 cubic inch is what they were known by. The 45 cubic inch was not the big V-twin in the Harley-Davidson lineup, but it was the workhorse of the Harley-Davidson motorcycle company for 30 years. First introduced in the mid-30s, and they made them in a solo bike configuration like this up until 1951, and continued to make them in three-wheel service vehicles, much like meter maids used, up until 1973. The 45 cubic inch wasn't the fastest motorcycle on the road, but it was one of the most dependable and the workhorse of the Harley-Davidson motorcycle company. That motor right there, with the exception of just a few little mechanical improvements along the way, remained basically unchanged for 30-something years. They also would take those motors out and run them in midget race cars, in what they call the three-quarter midget race cars. That was a very popular motor, that and the Indian Scout V-twin. A lot of people built little three-quarter midget race cars and run them at fairgrounds all over the country with that engine right there. This is a 1965 Cushman Super Silver Eagle. Now this was built after Cushman was taken over by OMC Corporation, Outboard Marine Corporation. And this engine is their design. It was a newer, upgraded overhead valve engine as compared to the old original Cushman engines, which were cast iron flathead engines. And this was a special order bike. In the early part of 1965, the Almena Shriners in Nashville, Tennessee, ordered 16 of these scooters, all equipped exactly the same way. They were special ordered in that the frames and forks were painted white to match the sheet metal, whereas a standard production motor scooter, the frames and forks were always black. So the frames and forks on this one is white, which matches all the trim and the sheet metal on the outside. It's got lots of extras on it.
This is specifically designed and painted for the Shriner.
Yes.
Because you were looking for a little more for the Shriner.
And the Shriners used this in all their parades that they attended. This was in the lightweight motor division. The heavyweight motor division, of course, would be the big Harley-Davidsons. And then they had the other vehicles. They used the cars and funny gadget things they made to do crazy stuff. But all these little doodads was all extras and accessories that was put on all 16 of these particular bikes and delivered to them here in Nashville, Tennessee. When you folks were here last week, in the excitement and the confusion and delight of having you visit here, I don't think I ever pulled a sheet off of this, did I?
No.
Do you remember?
No.
I fully intended to show you this, and I think in all that, I'm not going to say a senior moment because I don't have those. I failed to pull the sheet off that and show it to you. So I'd like to show it to you now.
Okay. Wow.
This is Schwinn's bicycle lineup for 1941, and they love to have movie stars on there promoting their products. And this is Arthur Lake, Penny Singleton. It tells you right here under the caption here. They played Blondie in Dagwood. And his Eddie Cantor and his family, if you remember him, and Bing Crosby, Dorothy L'Amour, Jerry Colonna, advertising the new Schwinn, and then Jackie Cooper. He was one of the original Little Rascals.
Didn't
And-
you recently pass, like a year in the past year?
It's not been long ago, just recently, you're right. And this is of course, the deluxe bikes are up here. And standard bikes down here. And that's all the movie stars advertising, promoting Schwinn's new bike lineup for 1941. Well, not only that, being it was a brochure rather than a wall poster, it's double-sided. And I had this frame specially made to display this. For years, I had this sitting on top of my sales counter and on the display. Here's Jackie Cooper again, and a young lady here, I forget her name. Here's Rita Hayworth, Bing Crosby and his sons. This little certificate here is just attached at the top. It flips up, and I forgot who's underneath there. But this is Schwinn's lifetime guarantee. Back in them days, if you bought a Schwinn bicycle, it was come with a lifetime guarantee to the original owner. And here's Gene Autry, and here's another movie star here, and here are his sons. As I said, I had this sitting on top of my sales counter in my shop. And one day I remember vividly, a fellow in there, at that time, he's probably about the age I am now. And he was leaned up there and he was looking at all these. And I had two little boys that used to come to my shop regularly that lived close to there. Remind me a lot of these two little boys. They were brothers. One was about 12 and the other one was about 9 or 10. They were in there also looking at bicycles. But this gentleman that was looking at this poster said, "I wish you'd look there at Gene Autry." Well, the older of the two little boys walked over there and he looked and he said, "Who is it?" And this man said, "Gene Autry." And the boy looked a little puzzled. And the man said, "Gene Autry, son, Gene Autry." He said, "Don't you know who Gene Autry is?" And I thought for a minute, I said, "No, I don't guess he does." But I've enjoyed that many, many years. I'm sorry I failed to show it to you when you was here last week. It is not on our list of our stuff, but I want to donate this to the museum.
Oh, thank you so much. That goes with our country. We actually have his boots.
All right.
Yeah, I got from Jay Jackson.
Well, it's going to. I knew it was going to a good home.
Yeah.
And it would serve the museum so much better than it would setting up here where nobody ever sees it. I want you to have it.
Thank you so much.